Hey friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. Today we have some stories out of the Entitled Parents subreddit. Let's begin. Our first story is by Isabel. Child gets hurt when mother isn't paying attention. She immediately blames me. I was working at a fast food restaurant. It was summer and we were located right off the interstate, so it was extremely busy. Now, before I get into the story, I'd like to say that I would never leave my child, if I had one, to do as they please in a crowded restaurant in a town I was unfamiliar with. The parents of this child were eating their food and letting their kid run around and bother other patrons in the restaurant. Some left after being told to mind their own business and clearly thought it was better to drop the situation instead of letting it escalate. Understandably so, the woman was a nightmare. The two doors leading into the restaurant can create a pretty powerful suction and can cause them to close fast with a lot of force. I saw the child playing with the doors and kindly told the mother to keep her away from them. She could get seriously hurt if she gets in the way. She rolled her eyes and pretty forcefully grabbed her kid away. The next thing I know, the kid is running after a complete stranger on the way out of the restaurant. The moment the second door opens, the first one comes slamming shut and knocks the kid back. In my opinion, she was very lucky her hands didn't get caught in the door. It all happened so fast. I was running around the counter in an attempt to stop her and made it just as she fell. The mother blamed me for not getting to her child fast enough. Had I been paying attention, it would have never happened. I got upset and told her I had warned her multiple times, but she let her kid wander off anyway. I think she forgot that her child is no one else's responsibility but her own. Yeah, this Karen sounds like the type of person who it's never her fault. Her kid gets in trouble, it's not her fault. Her kid does something bad to somebody else, it's not her fault. And if her kid gets hurt in a restaurant because she wasn't paying attention or she couldn't be bothered to pay attention, well, everyone else is supposed to watch her kid, so it's their fault. And so, by default, it's the OP's fault rather than Karen's fault. Anyway, on to the next story. Our next story is by Find a Pill. EM tells me I can't use sign language at home because she won't learn it, so I've been told to share this. Not sure if anyone else would be interested. This is about my adopted mother. My adopted parents are British citizens who moved to my country in the EU. They adopted me actually expecting mental disabilities, but I was actually just profoundly deaf. You would think that would be easier. So I grow up, I get enrolled in deaf schools where I learn sign language. But my mother decides it's too hard for her to learn sign language and actually bans me from using it in the house. I had to mime or point at things until I could start writing, upon which I carried around a notebook everywhere. If I did try to sign, I would be called disrespectful for excluding her from the conversation. In a strange way, this made my written language skills very good, as well as my lip reading skills, which many deaf people have challenges with. It was very difficult and upsetting living with her. My adopted father was very nice, but just listened to whatever she wanted, so he became a bad parent too. When I went to university, I limited my contact with them. One time I tried to visit them for the holidays, and I returned to the house to find a strange family living there. My adoptive parents moved back to the UK without telling me. Who does that? The OP's parents sound like a piece of work, really. On to the next story. Our next story is posted by Churn and Butters. Epic steals car. I'm 18 years old and still living with my parents. I pay rent and work full-time, but they still constantly go through my room and monitor my comings and goings. I recently found a tracker on my car and took it out, which is what started the whole event. When I got home from work, my mom blew up at me for removing the tracker. Apparently it was for my own safety and only there for emergencies. How'd you know it was gone so quickly though? The next day, I went out to start my car, and it didn't even make a noise. Spark plugs and a bunch of other parts removed from the engine of the car I 100% paid for, until I put back the tracker. Can't get to work in time now. I'm currently writing this from the bus. OP, if I were you, I would start looking for a new place to live. Also report your car damage to the police because I'm pretty sure what they did was illegal. If it's not their car, they don't pay for the insurance, they don't pay for gas to go in it, it's not in their name, then what they did was illegal. Anyway, on to the next story. If you're enjoying my content so far, please put some heart emojis in the comment section below. This story is posted by Tim Travels 77. EM threatens to burn down school. I've been teaching for 22 years or so, and I have a lot of crazy stories. The one that stands out the most is a mom who lost her mind over me giving her son a B instead of an A on a project that he turned in late. At the school I was working at the time, it was required for teachers to assign spring break assignments. We had just completed a full week of testing, and my class looked like it needed a break. I decided that instead of doing the normal, read these chapters and write this report, that I would instead allow them to draw a picture of an invention that they thought was interesting or important and write a paragraph about the inventor's life. I expressed that the assignment was going to be presented in front of the class by me, so they can watch their work for once instead of having to present it. We all broke for the break, and everyone seemed really excited to have a lot of their break for free time. When we returned from break, I drew names of the students for the order in which their presentations would be presented. The first student I called on said that he didn't have the work done, and so I told him to bring it in the next day. The kids thought it was funny to watch me act out their presentations, and it was a great time. The next day, I go on to teach the presentations for the next group, with the kid who missed out the day before going first. His presentation was nice. I explained to him after class that while it was a great project, I was marking him down a grade letter for turning it in late. Fast forward 2 days. I get a call from the office during the planning period that 2 parents were there to see me. I agreed to meet with them. They came to my class. Father looked like he had been dragged along, and the mother looked like she was hyping herself up to get crazy with me. EM: I want to know why you're discriminating against my child. Me: who is your child? EM: kid's name. That's who my child is. Me: have a seat. Let's figure out what the problem is. Her husband grabs a chair and pulls it closer to her. She's still hyped up, but he's trying to help her sit down. EM: F you, F your people, and F their people. Me: has your son let you know that his assignment was late and that I accepted it late because he's a good student? EM: F that mess. I don't care about anything right now. It was pretty clear I wasn't going to get anywhere, so I decided to leave the room and get another teacher to help me get the parent out of the class. We didn't have security back then, so I was on my own. No more than a second after I stepped out of the room, I heard a loud crash. I turned around to see that she had thrown a glass paperweight through a window, shattering it. Me: I'm going to call the police. You shouldn't be here when I get back. The EM sprung to her feet and followed me, screaming at the top of her lungs. She was hopping up and down, clapping in my face, telling me that she was I'm going to burn this school down today. The father just kept grabbing her by her coat and holding her back, enough that she couldn't make physical contact with me. She fell to the ground and slid out of the coat and was crawling towards me, furious at one point. It's a small town. The police could walk over faster than they could get into their car and drive over here. Within minutes, they were pulling her to her feet and trying to talk to her. She spit in the policeman's face and mentioned that she was going to backhand her. He barely hip bumped her and she fell onto the ground. She was screaming at the top of her lungs that she was being attacked. Her husband looked defeated, holding her coat and shaking his head. She went to jail for creating a public disturbance and for gross misconduct with a peace officer. The rest of the school year, she wasn't allowed on school property. The next year, I was promoted with my class, so that meant I had all the same kids as the previous year. I saw her dropping him off all the time because the ban had been lifted. She would always grind her teeth and growl at me. I'd speed up walking because I didn't want her to see me laughing. Imagine a grown woman sitting in her car making loud growling noises. Hilarious. Yeah, I think this woman was either on something at the time or she has some mental health issues, because that's not normal for an adult to act that way. And as for the whole burn down the school thing, I don't know how long ago this happened, and I don't know if it was in the US, but I know nowadays, if you make threats like that, and it doesn't matter what part of the country you're in, that stuff's taken very seriously. Anyway, on to our final story. Our final story is posted by Felina Lane. My son is in the next classroom. This is my first post on here. Since I work in children's education, not school, we teach them programming in extra scholar hours. To me, it's more of a matter of which story to tell, but I think today was a good enough one, if short. Some quick info. The place I teach in has big windows and the walls between the classrooms and hallways. One class has roughly 10 students. The cast is me, EM entitled Mother, and my students. So I'm teaching class Everything is going well, the kids are pretty focused, though we talk and joke a little bit as well. When suddenly, EM comes in to the hallway. We normally forbid parents from entering classrooms during class because we strongly advocate for kids' independence and letting them experiment without their parents breathing down their necks. We have special time for sharing with their families after class, which we set up for that very purpose. So the EM is in the hallway and she's peering into every classroom to locate her kid. She finally found him in the classroom next to mine. This is the only room that does not have direct windows into it from the hallway, just a door. This is closed. So the only way to see into the room is through the wall into my room. So EM can't wave at her kid. And so she decides to enter my classroom to then start waving at him from the middle of my class, disturbing it quite thoroughly, kicking the kids' bags around as she paces. Now, I rarely deal with entitled parents because I don't tolerate that BS in any form, and I can have a bit of a short temper. My kids know how little BS I take, and they all like that with me. The rules are clear cut, so they know what's about to happen. And they all look at EM with a happy, cruel, "Pooh, she's going to get it" look the kids see when someone else is getting scolded. I cough once to get her attention, and she turns around. I stare her down like a rude fool that she is, and then EM, "What?" Me, in a calm, level voice. "Ma'am, in case you failed to notice, I'm having a class, so you're going to return outside." EM, "But my son's in the next classroom and I wanted to see him." Me, "Ma'am, the children I teach are capable of understanding such clear and simple instructions easily enough. Are you able to do the same?" As I say this, I point to my kids, all of whom were holding back laughs. EM, "Yes, in a minute, my son." Me, cutting her off and making her glare at me. "Ma'am, your son isn't interrupting my class. He's following his own class. I asked you to get out because your presence is disturbing my class. You will leave now." At this point, my kids are starting to laugh because the "now" is usually my trump card with any of them that makes trouble. If I use the "now" in a special tone, it means they're pretty much screwed. And the next step after that is calling their parents. In this case, it would have been calling my manager, but EM finally got the hint and left my room. Under the laughter of my kids and grumbling about how she was going to talk to my manager about my conduct in class and my education skills. At which point I turned to my kids with a big smile. I didn't get into any trouble. The EM got a second lecture from my manager about how parents are not allowed to enter classrooms unless it's an emergency, and her kid, when the class ended, gave her a very loud complaint about the whole thing. Did the school not have a sign-in sheet? Because I remember when I went to school that parents couldn't just walk around willy-nilly through the hallways. I mean, yeah, security was a little lax in the late 90s and early 2000s, but I remember security guards and parents still had to go and sign in, so I'm guessing that she just kind of blew through the office and just decided to wander around the school until she could find her kid. But I still don't understand why she needed to go say hello to her kid so bad. Anyway, that's all the stories I have today. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. Links to the original stories will be in the description box below. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I've uploaded new content. Thank you for watching and have a great day.